A Holler FM podcast. Every time that I hear that theme song, it just takes me back.
Yes, Thursday night on Fox.
It was like Living Single and then Martin. Or maybe Martin came first. Which one? I don't even remember the order. But it was like that was that Thursday block with Living Single and Martin. And I gotta give it to Queen Latifah because she did that with that theme. She did it.
Now, did you completely leave out New York Undercover?
Girl, you know why I did though?
Yes.
You know what? Out. You are right. I completely left out
Martin, Living Single, and then New York Undercover.
You right.
You right. The order
with Malik, Yorba, and who was the Latino dude? Because he was looking good back in the day.
Oh, what was his name? I could completely see his face.
Right? I don't even remember his name. We should look that up.
He was cute though.
He really was.
He was really cute.
Right. He was. And that was how we spent our Thursday evenings. But just let's give Queen Latifah her credit though on that theme song. I was like, get it, Queen.
I looked it up. So the guy from New York Undercover, who is gorgeous, his name is Michael De Lorenzo.
That's right. That was him. Mm-hmm.
Okay, back to Living Single now.
But yes, I mean, I just, and when, so everybody, you guys all obviously know that this podcast, we're talking about living single. I just, when I watched it, I'm not going to get into it too deep, but I just wanted to say when I watched it, it was crazy because, I actually, we had certain episodes that we watched, but after I watched those episodes, I ended up going back and watching the pilot. And I remember feeling like, unlike Golden Girls, I just remember thinking from the jump, Living Single just felt like good, authentic connection. Whereas Golden Girls, that first season felt a little like they're still finding their voice. I remember just thinking like, like Erica Alexander, Queen Latifah, Kim, like they all just came together and there was a vibe and a connection.
Right. And I kind of wonder if that, well, okay, we're going to go into the synopsis, but first, Chanel, how you doing, girl?
Girl, I'm going to keep it 100. I am tired. I am so tired. Like, I don't even realize how tired I am until I get to the end of the night because, both kids, just their sleep patterns is just not sustainable at all.
Right.
So I am tired. And then, it's work. And then on top of the work is the wedding. And then just, girl. So I am tired. I fell asleep before the podcast. That's how tired I am. But I am also, I feel like once we get talking, it's like the tiredness just kind of falls off a little bit. And I'm like, oh, yeah, let's have a conversation. How are you doing?
Well, as everybody knows, I am in nursing school.
Girl, we know that. You say that everybody.
I just want to emphasize that. Is that I'm in nursing school. So, yeah. So, I think I said in the previous podcast, I can't remember, that I started OB. So I'm in the OB session and also taking nutrition. So I'm doing 2 classes. So like you, I feel so tired, but it's so rewarding to learn about what you had to go through when you were pregnant with your children. You know, learning all these complications that you could have had and learning about interventions that you had to do. I'm like, wow. I take my hat off to, you know, women who went through 9 months of carrying the child and then having to give birth to the child. I tell you, if children knew how much pain that the mom had to go through, how much energy the fathers had to exert to support their significant other during labor and birth, I think kids would be so well behaved. Because y'all go through the ringer. Y'all basically go through hell.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's really funny that you bring that up, because I do think, you know, I was just sitting here thinking when you were saying that, you know, you see it on TV, we see the episodes, you know, all that, you know, but I feel like you don't really understand it unless, you know, like your case, you're studying it or you've been through it. And I feel like, you know, now that I've had 2 kids, you know, whenever I see, you know, a pregnant woman, you know, I'm always like trying to think, how can I help you? What can I do to take it up? You know, what is there that I can help with? Because you just realize it's a lot. It's exhausting. Your body's tired. You know, and it really is true that you're like doing, you know, you're taking care of 2 people. And I feel like, you know, I personally feel like the older generation's always like, why are you so tired for? I was pregnant and I was doing X, Y, Z. And in my head, I'll be like, that's cool. I'm pregnant and I'm tired. So yeah, I think it's a lot. And I think, but I don't feel like people really understand that, like, unless you're studying it or unless you've actually been through it.
But, you know, some of them older people probably forgotten how they felt when they were pregnant, you know? It's kind of like we learned in class how, you know, you go through all this pain and then when the baby comes out, the endorphins kick in, you know, you get this sense of like, oh my goodness, here's my baby. You forget all about the pain. You forget about the fatigue because you had this beautiful bundle of joy. So the older people might have forgotten about that, you know. I'm sure they probably complained to their mother-in-law saying, oh, I'm so tired. And the mother-in-law probably said the same thing.
Or in this case, your mama. But yeah, and that's the crazy thing is that it's like, you know what, honestly, I remember thinking, you know, especially with the second, my body was just in so much pain. And then, you know, when I had him, I remember thinking, man, like it's funny because you're like, oh, you're here and you're right. There's that endorphin rush. And then you go right into, you know, if you choose to breastfeeding, and that's like every 3 hours around the clock, you know. And I just remember thinking like, it just never ends. Like parenthood never ends.
Right.
And, you know, my mom and dad told us that. My in-laws have said that. But now that, you know, I'm actually a parent, I'm just like, no, it really doesn't ever end.
So, you are a parent for life.
Glad that you are in OB and seeing what maybe your body will go through.
I don't think so. I'm going to leave it up to you and Pam. Y'all have the experience, so I'm gravy.
Well, we're going to leave that as a we'll see ... That is
true. That is true. They always say if you want to make God laugh, say you have a plan.
That is the truth right there. What was I going to say? So we'll leave that at the ... The second part of the question is always, what are you sipping on?
Well, I am sipping on the Robert Mondavi, the Cabernet Sauvignon. And also, too, I want to say is that I started doing calorie counting because I want to lose some of this excess weight that I'm carrying. Yeah. So.
You said that's super funny. You said, I want to lose some of this excess weight.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's excess weight. Now, like, I went to the doctor's office and I stood on that scale, and the number was like, a little too much to the right. I was like, oh Lord, have mercy! No, I need to shed some of these pounds. So I'm probably going to be sipping on this Robert Mondavi for quite some time.
Vanessa, but then how are you going to do the point of the show, which is sipping with my sister?
Well, no, that's why I saved enough calories to sip on the wines now. But I'm just saying, I can't be drinking the wine every day like I was. What you sipping on?
I am sipping on the Robert Mondavi Private Reserve. I feel like it's the Private Reserve Chardonnay in the bourbon barrels.
Oh, because mine is also aged in the bourbon barrels.
And that is why I think Robert bought it.
Oh, look at the producer. I'm so impressed.
Matchy. Although to my credit, just so folks know, since it's not just me drinking the wines, our wine always goes faster than Vanessa's does because there's two people drinking the wines. So cheers, Vanessa. I'm going to take a sip and let you know how it is.
Cheers. Yes, let me know what you think.
I like this one better. I like this one better than I liked the one before. And I can definitely, that kind of bourbon barrel, like that aging process, it's definitely shaped the wine in a good way. So I would recommend it for folks if y'all are out there and you're like me, you're not really into that buttery, or if you can go between both, I would say get this one. Also, the cool thing is that Robert Mondavi is on the cheap side. So if you're not calorie counting, but you're counting them coins, I'm just saying it's like a good, nice, like affordable price wine. Like you're not trying to break the bank. Because sometimes we get in that spirit where we feel like, oh, we need to get like the highest quality, most expensive. No, you don't. No, you don't. Just pointing that out there. That's my sales pitch tonight for Robert Mondavi.
And just to let y'all know, so I looked it up on my little calorie counter, and just as I thought, wine is high in calories, especially if you're like me and, basically pour half a glass of it. But yeah, the Cabernet Sauvignon is 180 calories for 5 ounces.
How much is 5 ounces? Is that like a half a pour?
Yeah, I don't think that's a full pour.
Is that? Wow. It's 130?
180.
180. Damn. Girl, but look up like a 12-ounce can of Pepsi and tell me how much calories that is.
Oh, well, I already know a Sprite is 140 calories in the
at the front door.
In the 12-ounce can.
All right, praise God. I'm you know what? I'm trying to count my calories. No, I'm not. I ain't gonna tell that lie on here. I'm trying to do something though. So I'm gonna keep that in mind.
For me, it was just stepping on that scale, girl. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, I mean, you can only use the baby weight for so long.
Well, you just had your baby, like, what?
Right?
Now, 10
That's
months?
how I feel. Like 10 months ago.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I should have a minute before, I'm like, oh, I need to drop it. Although I will say with Felix, the weight, when I was breastfeeding Felix, the weight dropped hella quick. And now, nursing Fox, it's like I'm hella hungry with him. So the weight isn't dropping because I'm just like wanting to eat everything. Praise God. But we gonna support Vanessa in her journey to calorie count. Maybe next month we could try one of those skinny cocktail things or something.
Absolutely not.
Why?
I will just save the wine will be a treat for me. How about that?
Okay.
If I'm going to spend my money on wine, I want wine. No offense to anybody, no tea, no shade on anyone who buys the skinny girls drinks, but for me personally, if I'm going to dish out my money, I want the wine. It'll be my treat for myself.
Girl, go ahead. Okay, Vanessa, we have heard you loud and clear. That will be a treat for you. You will not do the skinny, What is it? What was that woman that had those skinny cocktail things? I forgot her name. Lord, forgive me.
Oh, yeah. She's from, was it Bethany Frankel, I want to say?
Yeah. Something like that. But we're going to talk about living single, aren't we?
Yes. In 90s kind of world.
You were waiting for me to finish that, weren't you?
Yeah.
I'm glad I got my girls.
There you go.
All right, Vanessa, tell us, for those folks who don't know what it is, tell us what Living Single's about.
So Living Single was a show that debuted on Fox back in 1993. They went off the air in 1998, but they're still going strong in syndication. It follows 6 individuals, and they're like mid to late 20s, I would say, kind of living in New York, going through life, getting their careers established, getting relationships established, finding the one. Well, actually, one of the characters, Sinclair and Overton, they married, but all the rest of them are finding, the one. So this show is like, I watched the Living Single reunion special they did, and T.V. Carson said it best. He's the one who played Kyle. He said it best. He was like, Living Single is the show that shows you what happens after college. Like when people graduate from college, they get their job. Now they're establishing their career. They're establishing their home. They're, going out there, not just dating, but now it's like dating with a purpose. It's like, I want to find my husband. I want to find my wife.
Wow, that was a word.
They have a bunch of zany adventures along the way too.
Yeah,
I think that's a pretty good synopsis. Yeah,
that was a great one. I don't have anything to add. I think the thing that we so what we did was we watched 2 episodes. So they always have. I always feel like they always have 2-parter episodes at the end of their season. So we watched the 2-parter episode from end of season 2 to beginning of season 3. And then we did the same thing or the end of season 3 to the beginning of season 4.
Right.
And if I'm remembering correctly, so season 2, kind of the end of that one is where we have our. And I think the cool thing about Living Single is that it's an ensemble cast, as Vanessa was mentioning, right? So it's everybody, like kind of like what happens after college. And the showrunner, Yvette Lee Bowser, she wrote for A Different World, which was basically like, after the Cosby Show, when Lisa Bonet's character goes to college. And then it's almost like Living Single is like when you graduate for Hillman, here's what happens next. And,
But just to clarify, this is not a spinoff of The Cosby Show.
It is not. It is not. She just wrote for A Different World.
Right.
And then, kudos to her, though, because that's the first Black showrunner with her own show, a primetime show. So she was making moves before Shonda Rhimes. Just wanted to put that out there. So we have the 6 characters. Queen Latifah's character, who's Khadijah, a very confident, woman who is running her own small business, Flava Magazine. We have her cousin, Sinclair, who is lovable, but, slightly ditzy, but very lovable about it and very sweet. And then we have the roommate, Regine.
Played by Kim Coles.
Yes, played by Kim Coles. And then we have Regine's character, played by Kim Fields, who was in Facts of Life. And she is the bougie, bougie is the best word that I have to describe her. as in, she has
that's what
her,
she is.
right, her wigs and her, boutique shop, and she is looking for a man to pay the bills, basically, and get set up.
Well, okay, let's just clarify. She ain't necessarily looking for a man to pay the bills. But, I mean, she's looking for the man who has the money so she can be living in comfort.
Fair enough. And then we have Max.
Maxine Shaw, attorney at law.
Played by Erica Alexander, who is the lawyer, very sharp, has a ton of wit, and has that will they, won't they relationship with Kyle Barker.
Yes. Played by T.C. Carson. And Kyle's roommate, Overton, is the dependable, lovable handyman. Overton Wakefield Jones.
And that's the cast of characters that you kind of see through. And like Vanessa said, there's a bunch of different things they go through. Like at the end of season 2, it was Kyle and Maxine. He basically, if I remember correctly, he basically saves her life, right?
Right.
Which then changes their kind of like back and forth banter to actual, Maxine is like making the overtures and giving him dinner, and they realize there's a real connection there. Right.
And I have to say, both T.C. Carson and Erika Alexander have said that they felt like Kyle and Maxine hooked up too soon. But I really appreciate this particular couple because it was so nice to see a handsome man, a gorgeous woman, chocolate skinned, being desired. It felt like, when I felt the same way when I was watching Black Panther. It was like seeing women who did not fit, women and men who did not fit the stereotype of Hollywood beauty being desired. And that's what one of my favorite things about Kyle and Maxine is that this is a gorgeous, attractive couple who are strong, they're independent. I mean, but it's like everything you would want or everything I would want in a relationship. That desire. To have someone, looking at you and desiring you. Like that scene at the piano in which he's like, "This is the sea," and she's like melting into his arms. I'm like, oh, yes. I would love that, to just melt into somebody's arms. So, as you can tell, I love Kyle and Maxine together. I love them as a couple.
I do too. I definitely do. So I'm the same page. I think what was beautiful about living single, as Vanessa mentioned, it's especially in a time period where there's so many shows that don't have Black people at the forefront, just to see Black lives is beautiful, and to see it not necessarily in this way where we're, where there's like the caricatures, but it's just like we're living life. I think that was something that completely resonates with me. I'm actually on the sense of that. Part of what I love about Kyle and Maxine is their banter and is all that like sexually charged tension that goes back and forth, and they're very well written and witty arguments. And so I actually think that season 2 felt like it was a little too soon, because it kind of feels like you don't have the payoff yet for me. I remember being like, part of you is like, will they, won't they? Oh, they're almost there. They're super close, but no. And then you go back into that kind of witty argument. And it's kind of like that thing with Cheers with, what's his name? Ted Danson's character.
Oh, Sam?
With Sam and Diane, where they also too have that will they, won't they? And I think the show plays on that with Kyle Maxine in such a good way that it did feel a little bit like, yes, you were like, it like consummates that like, yes, finally it's happened. But I felt like I was like, if it had happened in like season 3 or season 4, the buildup would have been that much better for me.
I can see that, but let's not forget, I mean, throughout the course of the series, they do break up, get back together, break up. So, I mean, there's still kind of that tension of, are they finally just going to be like, okay, we're meant to be together, we're going to move forward. But I can just tell you, that piano scene, oh, girl, child, I had to fan myself.
No, I'm with you. I liked it. I just felt like it was too soon, and I almost felt like I could have just waited a little longer to just kind of more enjoy their dynamic. But either way, yes, I think seeing them together is always satisfying.
Yeah.
And then we have in that same episode the dynamic that we find out between Regine and Khadijah.
Yeah, so Khadijah and Regine, polar opposite. Like you said before, Khadijah is like independent, self-starter. You know, she's editor-in-chief of Flavor magazine, which she's barely holding together. And then you have Regine, who is, you know, first she worked at a boutique, and now she's working on the soap opera. And she's just like buying her fancy wigs, her fancy clothes. And she's like, I'm just trying to find Mr. Right, who has the limo, the penthouse, the private jet, because I deserve all that. So you have this polar opposite, and it really manifests in the last episode of season 2, in which they go onto a talk show. My bad. Previously, they went on a talk show, and it came out that basically Khadijah was forced to take in Regine by her mother. So in the episode we saw, Regine is like, I'm out because I don't want to be where I'm not wanted. You know, because Regine's character is all about her. And she always thinks everybody wants to be like her. So it really kind of gets to her that, what? Khadijah did not want me? She did not want moi? So Regine moves out, and Khadijah, you know, stubborn, is like, oh, this is just her having a temper tantrum. I'm not going to apologize. And then when she does apologize and be like, I want you to stay, Regine is like, no, I want to be independent too. And then Khadijah's like, see ya.
Right. And see, it's interesting because one of the things that I would say that I really like about living single is the relationship between the women and seeing the complexity. And so for me, I've always felt like Regine and Khadijah had something special because they've been friends for so long, since childhood. And I think the way that I saw it in some ways was that for Regine, it was like, I need to strike out on my own. And it's weird, right? Because it's like a lot of the show is her like, you know, I want this man and I want to find someone like kind of like you were saying that put me in this state of comfort. But at the same point, I also feel like she very much wants to prove that she can do it, you know, that she can kind of hold her own. And so for me, what was kind of illuminating in their friendship was that she's kind of, in some ways, trying to show like, no, I got this. I can do this. I don't need Khadijah. But in the same vein, Khadijah's doing the same thing where like, I feel like if Regine is all about like, you know, that comfort, but underneath it really wants to prove that she can do it on her own, I feel like Khadijah is the same way of like, well, I don't need you. I can do all this on my own. But honestly, she does need Regine. Regine does actually do a lot and contribute a lot. And so they both are kind of like the yin and yang that make each other work. And so I thought that was really interesting because you're right. When you look at them, they're these polar opposites, and you could kind of pick apart and say, like I said, like Regine's bougie, Khadijah's this confident woman. But at the end of the day, they're both very confident women in different ways that are mutually dependent on each other. And I felt like that was a really beautiful thing.
And, I think I always say that I think they actually want a little bit of what the other one has. So, Khadijah, like a, independent woman, has her own company, barely holding the company together. And I think there's a part of her that does want that financial security that could come from having a well-to-do boyfriend or husband. Not necessarily, Khadijah's not necessarily looking for, the rich stockbroker, but she is looking for someone who can support her. And with Regine, like you said, for her, it's like, even though she keeps saying, I want, the rich man, she also does want to be seen as an independent person. So I think they kind of like, even though they are polar opposites, and in the show, they kind of have this contentious relationship, you can kind of tell that they each desire to be a little bit more like that other person.
Yeah, I think they desire it, but I would say, I think one of the reasons why, because I would almost say, because Khadijah and Maxine's character go way back, and they're both very similar in that, confident, we've got it together, we're women. But I think I would almost say that Khadijah and Regine's friendship has, to me, the most depth, because both women clearly love each other and are very loyal to each other. And I would just say, they both need each other to be the best part of themselves. And I think Max doesn't do that for Khadijah because they're so similar, but Regine does it in a way because she pushes Khadijah in a different way.
Right. No, I agree with you on that one. Yeah.
And then I think the last good thing that we kind of see in that season 2, season 3 is we see the other kind of relationship. So I would say, in contrast to Kyle and Maxine's, are they, won't they, will they, won't they, are they together, are they not together, is you see the Overton and Sinclair relationship. Yeah. And I want to say in season 2, they don't really have, there's nothing that's wrong in their relationship. In my recollection, they're still kind of basically building towards their relationship.
Well, I think their relationship is, they're obviously, boyfriend and girlfriend. I don't think they're at the point of, they're not, trying to figure out their relationship. They're secure in their relationship.
Yeah, what I meant was there's nothing, how with Maxine and Kyle, it's this robbery happens and Kyle becomes the knight in shining armor, and then we get into the deeper part. But with Overton and Sinclair, there's nothing like that happens in that episode. I think, to me, they're almost like the stable counterpart to Maxine and Kyle.
Most definitely.
And they just have, so I actually feel like the way that you were kind of swooning about Kyle and Maxine, the thing that I actually loved the most was watching Sinclair and Overton's relationship, because it's one of the most constant things in the show is their ability to love each other and support each other through a number of different challenges. And it's very, very steady. And I love that, because I was like, yes, it's not, the will they, won't they, all that tension. And you're like, oh, what's going to happen? It's a very steady, stable couple. And kind of, as you mentioned, that's a beautiful thing to see on TV as it relates to just being a young Black person. You're like, that's cool. They're that steady, stable couple that's weathering through different things together. And I'm here for it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they are they're the steady couple, like you said. They're like the glue. They're actually the glue that really holds the group together.
Yes. Yes.
You know?
And I think that's the cool thing. I completely, with Overton and Sinclair's character, because, you know, when whoever is going through whatever challenges, those two are the steady ones that hold everyone together.
Yeah. And I think they're also kind of like the end goal. So, you know, like, you know, Max and Kyle have the will they, won't they tension. Regine and Khadijah are still searching. And it's like you look at Sinclair and Overton, and it's like, okay, that's the relationship goal that we want. Someone that you can laugh with, joke with, cry with, be supportive, have a support system with them. It's like truly they're each other's best friends. And that's like the relationship goal.
Exactly. And I think that's, to me, the beautiful part of the show. It's like you said, I think we kind of see in other seasons, like you'll see like Khadijah kind of dating different people, and you'll see the same thing with Regine. But I do think that Yvette like makes this conscious decision of, well, what is the goal that you would want to see? Mm-hmm. And I think part of it is the relationship between the women. So I think that's really powerful, and having that network of beautiful women supporting one another. But part of it also is seeing that Overton Sinclair relationship and how it is really the glue. I think that's something that's really beautiful.
And just to piggyback what you said, having Overton and Sinclair being the relationship goal, I think it also shows viewers as to this is the type of relationship you want. Because I kind of feel as if the media tries to be like, oh, when you're in your 20s, you should just be dating whoever and not really caring about the quality of the relationship. But Yvette was like, no, I mean, yes, it's fine to go out there and date. But I mean, when you're starting to actually date to find the one, like this is the type of relationship you want. You basically want your best friend. Like someone who you can, you know, I mean, like, because Sinclair would be like chilling in her robe in Overton's apartment and not caring, you know?
Yeah, and I think, go ahead.
Oh, and then I would say, you know, like, when Overton is going to take Sinclair to the fancy restaurant, and he says, like, oh, yeah, don't forget to wax your toes because she has hairy toes. I mean, that's the type of relationship you want. Like, you know, your man doesn't even care that you have hairy toes. It's just like, whatever. Like, you can grow them out, but, like, on a special occasion, you know, wax them because I want to take you out, girl.
Yeah, and, you know, I was going to chime in because I think one of the things that I like, you know, it's funny because the show is called Living Single, right? And one of the things that I like about it is that in a lot of ways, you got to think that it shapes a number of different shows. Because even like Sex and the City, right? Like this came, you know, before Sex and the City. And I do think there's a beautiful point in time in your 20s where you're just figuring shit out, you know, and you're trying to figure out like, who am I and what am I about and who do I want to be and what do I want to do? And so I think, yes, I do think there's a valuable period. And I think there's a way that having that group of friends to see you through that is vital. And I love that about Living Single. And I think what I like about Overton and Sinclair is that just because, like, to me, it's like just because you're in your 20s, it doesn't always have to be about exploration. Like, if you find the one, that's okay. Like, you know, and I think that's the thing that happens with like when you watch Sex and the City, it's like four white women who are living in, you know, what is it, like Manhattan, hella rich, at least in my opinion, because, you know, they're drinking all the time and like the shoes and the clothes game is way up there. But it's like the show, a lot of it is like different kind of situations with different men and figuring your shit out. And a lot of it is on self-discovery. And I think what makes Living Single powerful is that, you know, it's not that Khadijah, Sinclair, and Max and Regine don't have self-discovery. It's that it can look very different. So like Sinclair's discovering herself in this relationship. And that's okay. Like we don't have to set these benchmarks of I'm in my 20s. I can't commit to anything. I've just got to like fuck a bunch of people and figure out what it is. So I like that. I mean, I didn't find the one in my 20s, but I appreciate and I respect that. And I think I did have a little bit of envy for those friends of mine that I knew who settled down when they were like 24 and they found the one and got married. I remember being like, well, shit, how did you do that? Because I'm definitely not there.
Well, I mean, technically, Chanel, you found your one in middle school. Y'all just did not see that.
Girl, bye. Bye,
well,
Vanessa.
you guys were in middle school. But I'm just saying, I mean, y'all were always, you and Robert were always like bumping into each other. And you guys were actually the will they or won't they.
Bye, Vanessa.
It was like you guys were, it was like God himself was like saying, Robert, Chanel's the one. God was like, Chanel, Robert's the one.
Girl, there needs to be a buy button for this podcast. Like, producer, someone put that in. Because I would press that shit right now.
I'm telling the truth. I'm telling the truth, Chanel. No, I
don't. Because I am being 100% honest when I say, because I felt like there were a couple of people where I was like, oh, maybe. Nope. Just kidding. Not going to happen. It's funny though, because I would say that you actually were the one that was like always kind of like in a like relationship, like a long-term relationship. And I felt like I was always just hopping around. That sounds bad. What was that Bobby Brown song, Humping Around?
Yeah, but
oh, Lord Jesus.
But I'm just saying though, the stars were aligning for you and Robert, and y'all were fighting it. I'm just saying.
Girl, if you could see my face, it would be, you know that meme where it's like, what is his name? Carrie Ells, and he's like do that blinking thing. You're talking about that one meme? That's what I look like right now. Like, excuse me? Excuse me? Anyway, so back to the show. I would say, like I think that's something, and I think the next episodes that we watched, we wanted to do it a little bit further away. I did in part because I wanted to see how the show evolved. And one of the things that I would say when we're looking at the end of season 3, and that's when we get to the big episode where Overton proposes to Sinclair, I don't ever feel like the show had a problem finding and owning its voice. So I felt like Golden Girls, that first season was a little like, it just felt a little like, they haven't quite gelled yet. But I would say I watched the pilot of Living Single. I watched that season 2 and then season 3. And I felt like their voice was consistent from jump.
And I always kind of wonder if maybe it's because when you have a predominantly African-American cast, if there's more pressure to be like, we have to be good from jump. Whereas I feel like shows that are predominantly white, has a predominantly white cast, is like they have that
leeway?
Leeway. They have a leeway to kind of like work on developing their voices. I mean, the show is like, the Golden Girls is still good, don't get me wrong, the first season, but they do have that leeway to be like, okay, we're still working on developing our characters and, how I want to portray this character. Whereas I feel like with Black shows, it's like you have to be good from jump. Because if you're not, it's like you can be canceled after 2-3 episodes.
Right. And that's what I was thinking too. Because one of the things that I didn't know was Queen Latifah was big before the show. So you knew that she had a television deal lined up. I didn't know that Kim Coles also had a deal kind of lined up. already. So I was like, oh, word. They both kind of had, situations up front and all ready to go. But it makes sense because Kim Coles is an amazing kind of comedic talent.
Mm-hmm.
But I did, feel like, when you're Black, there's just a little more pressure. And I mean, Yvette Lee Bowser carrying this show as the first Black woman to do it, that has to be even more, even if you're on Fox, which wasn't even one of the big networks at that time.
No, it wasn't. No, yeah.
You're still, I mean, the fact that they basically, to me, help build Fox's brand and get them to be one of the big networks, that's an accomplishment. And I think you're right that you kind of have to be on your game because they all were.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I was really impressed by, was that I was like, in terms of comedic timing and just the flow, there was, to me, nothing awkward about it. Like, I was laughing from the pilot all the way to season 3.
Yeah. And let's not forget, I mean, John Hinton and, like you said, Kim Coles, I mean, seasoned comedians, so their comedic timing is on point. Kim Fields, she's a veteran actress. Like we said, she was on Facts of Life, which ran for 10 years. So she knows how to get into character real fast.
And and exactly it. And one of the things that I'm surprised about.
What's that?
I was doing a little tiny informal poll, just trying to get a sense of okay, so because I was like, we grew up Black household supporting Black shows. Didn't mean we didn't watch Cheers and Golden Girls and Designing Women, although we did bypass Seinfeld and Friends, and Full House actually. But I was like, how many people?
But we saw a few, I saw a few episodes of Seinfeld and Full House.
Girl, we saw so few episodes that if somebody came up to you, Vanessa, and said soup Nazi about Seinfeld, you'd be like, what?
Probably so. I was probably like, wait, I think that took place in the diner and the guy wouldn't serve a certain brand of soup. I think.
See?
It would be very vague.
Exactly. And then let's not get started on Full House when neither one of us could remember. Is it Dave Coulier?
Yeah, we were trying to remember his character's name.
What was Uncle Joey? Fuck, no, I did that before. Shit. What was his name?
Yeah, that was John Stamos' character.
What was his name? It was Uncle. Did we ever figure this out?
No. But anyways, go on.
Okay.
Tell about the poll.
Anyways,
and I'll look it up.
So my main point, you gonna look it up and we gonna be like, oh yeah. But my main point was that I was trying to do an informal poll because I was like, okay, so how many people will really watch your Martin and Living Single and New York Undercover? So I mean, of course I had to ask, Robert, aka the producer, aka baby daddy, aka fiance. That always feels weird to say, so I say that shit last. I've been saying that shit last and under my breath, fiance, because it just feels weird to say that. But and Robert was like, well, yeah, my mom used to watch Living Single and Martin, and I was like, oh, word, did you though? And Robert didn't really watch it, and his mom did watch it, and then my friend Saba watched it. And that was all of my informal poll.
Oh.
I know. I didn't ask a ton of people. But I just remember thinking that I was like, oh, cool. Salva used to watch it. Robert's mom watched it. Robert didn't really watch it. His brother didn't really watch it. His dad definitely didn't watch it. So, it just didn't feel like it got to that level of mainstream, everybody's talking about it. But at the same time, it fucking built Fox as a network. So you gotta sit there and go that's a crazy, huge accomplishment that just probably gets overlooked all the time. And we have the first Black showrunner, and we're all raving about Shonda Rhimes. But I'm nobody's raving about, Yvette Lee Bowser and what she did.
No, I agree. And side note, you were actually right, Chanel. So Dave Coulier's character was Uncle Joey.
Oh,
John Stamos' character was Uncle Jesse.
Uncle Jesse. That's right. Girl, we cannot call ourselves the fucking Full House fans. And we did not.
I never said I was a Full House fan. I just said I saw a couple of episodes.
Side note for all y'all out there, Robert, aka the producer, is over here shaking his head at me because he used to watch Full House. What did we forget last time? Oh, we didn't know his name. So we didn't know Dave Coulier's name.
Oh.
It was Uncle Joey. We got it all messed up. And Robert and I have had this persistent argument. This is a complete side note because he's like, how did you guys watch TGIF and not watch Full House? And I still can't fully figure that out.
No, because Full House wasn't on TGIF. It was Step by Step.
No, girl, Full House was a part of the TGIF lineup. I didn't know that either. I swear I did not know that.
I
remember Step by Step too. Like I remember Perfect Strangers. I remember Family Matters, and then I remember Step by Step. But Robert was like, Full House was a part of that lineup. It came on at 8 after the first year. He says. He said Perfect Strangers was only a part of it for the first year. So, girl, but I don't even know how we missed it. Like, other than if we were just like, fuck it, we ain't gonna watch Full House and we came in after Full House. We must have. Well, I don't know.
Well, question. Did it come on after Family Matters or before Family Matters?
It came on after Family Matters.
Oh, I don't know how we missed it then, girl.
Oh, no, wait. He said it's the other way. Full House. It was Full House, Family Matters, and then Step by Step.
That's probably how we missed it, because I think we tuned in for Family Matters.
That's it. That's how we missed it. You know, the good thing is that we know that Dave Coulier, Uncle Joey, and John Stamos, Uncle Jesse, and Mary-Kate and Ashley, who were, what were those kids' names? Rachel? Rebecca? I don't even remember those girls' names. Ashley? Michelle. That was it. And people, if you think that we're messing around, Vanessa and I are being real serious. Like, we honestly...
No, we're being serious.
We honestly don't know. But this must be how white people feel when we talk about black shows. They must be like, oh yeah,
probably
Living Single. I kind of remember that. I mean... Yeah, wasn't there was it Queen something? I mean, I'm sure they do that same thing. So I can't hate on that.
Right. Well, I this is personal experience. So in college, for my first degree, there was, I think Friends was like, I don't know.
Oh, shit. You opened the Friends can.
I mean, because what you're saying, it reminded me of college. But anyways, everybody was talking about who Rachel's baby daddy was, and I was literally clueless. I was like, wait, who's Rachel? And they're like, Rachel from Friends, Vanessa? And I'm like, oh. And then my question was, wait, how is it that everybody's like, OMG, who's the daddy? Blah, blah. And I can't remember who the choices were. I think it was like Ross and somebody else. I can't remember. But it was like, oh, who's the daddy? Oh, it has to be this one. Oh, it has to be this one. And I was like, wait a minute. Now, if this was like on, Jerry Springer is notorious for who the baby daddy is. I mean, you guys wouldn't be saying, be like, oh, I wonder who the father is. Y'all be like, how do you not know who the father is? Being judgmental to the Jerry Springer people. And then one girl was like, well, Vanessa, Rachel knows who the father is. We just don't know. And I was like, why is there a whole cliffhanger, hoopla over who the baby daddy is if she knows who the baby daddy is? This don't make any sense to me. So when you said, but the way you explained it, I'm like, that is literally how my mind worked when they were talking about who the baby daddy was. And I'm like, they probably feel the same way when I actually, when I quote "living single" and I get the blank stare, like I walked past this one girl's room and I don't know if it was her friend or boyfriend. I have no idea, but he was giving her a back massage. So I was like, "Oh, don't be doing no freaky sneaky stuff." And they're like, "What?" And I was like,
Girl.
freaky sneaky. And they're like, "Huh?" And I was like, "Never mind. And for all y'all don't know, that's what Maxine would say, like, freak sneaky.
Well, no, it's funny because when you brought that up, like one of the things that it reminded me of, so I'm gonna take an OG back in the days when I used to hang out with Robert in like middle school. And I promise you, like that whole group of people, every time it was like, "Oh my God, did you guys see the episode of Friends?" And, and Friends came on Thursday night, and so did Living Single. And we just watched Living Single. And I remember being like, okay, so I've never watched an episode of Friends in my life at that period of time. Never. But the whole group that I was with, everybody was obsessed with Friends. And so I would just have to be like, yeah, word, really? What? I can't believe that happened. But I was faking it the entire time because I was like, I don't even know what channel Friends came on. Like, that's how removed I was from Friends. And I felt like that group of friends, none of them even, that's not true. Maybe 2 people, the Black people, knew about Living Single. And everybody else, all the white kids, or not even white kids, but like Asian kids and shit, were just like, Friends. And I'm going to just say it because we've been talking about it. Friends, let's all be honest, is just like the gentrified version of Living Single. That's exactly what we're talking about. Like, it's like, oh, cool. Things got gentrified. White people moved in. They got a coffee shop. That's Friends. That's what, compared to Living Single.
Yeah, and I mean, we did watch a few episodes of Friends, so that way we do have an understanding of what the show is, and we're not just talking down of our butts. So we did watch a few episodes of Friends as well to kind of do a compare and contrast, because even John Hinton said in the interview how he felt like Friends was a ripoff of Living Single. But like you said, it was a gentrified version of Living Single.
And I was kind of digging back, particularly in 96. It was maybe it's 97. It was John Hinton, Erica Alexander, Queen Latifah. I mean, and Yvette, all of them were saying Friends is basically based off of Living Single. Mm-hmm. They just have more money, a major studio, and they're all white.
Ooh, girl, I had to take a sip. You just dropped some knowledge. You dropped some knowledge, girl.
I'm just saying, so I'm gonna just reveal some truth that, Robert and I was telling this to Vanessa last night when we were watching the episodes. Because Robert, grew up watching Friends. And so he was watching Living Single with me as I was watching it. And he was like, I just think the writing on Friends is better. And he was like, it's like the Hydrox and the Oreo, where Hydrox was the original, but the Oreo ended up being better and got a bigger name. And I was like, girl, I mean, okay, first of all, using Oreo is problematic with Black people anyways, because at some point in time, most Black people, especially if you've gone to college or whatever it was, have been called an Oreo before. So I was like, okay, can we pause on the Oreo analogy? Because that has some personal meaning to my life anyways. Whatever, side note. But also I was like, this is where, you and I talked about this too, where I would just straight up say that is straight up unconscious bias. Of course you think Friends is funny because you grew up watching Friends. Right. Of course you think it's well written because you grew up with that. When I watch Friends, I can go through an entire episode and not laugh once. Promise.
Yeah, same here. And that's why I always tell people, I said there's a huge difference between quote unquote hood famous and quote unquote mainstream famous. Like Living Single would be considered hood famous. Like a certain demographic watched Living Single.
Side note.
Just have the producer on the mic.
That's what I'm saying. Robert, can you come join us?
But what I was going to say though is that Friends was mainstream success. You know, it was part of pop culture. However, we were in that demographic, or I can't speak for Chanel. I can speak for me. I was not part of that demographic. You know, like I was watching Living Single on Thursday nights. So I knew of Friends, but the only times I really watched an episode was actually probably for the podcast. Is when I actually watched full on episode. But you just think about it. It's like even though we didn't watch Friends when it was on, we were still aware of it. And that's the power of being mainstream famous. Whereas with Living Single, it's like only certain people heard of the show.
We're just going to pause for a quick second. All right. So we've had a lot of conversation about Friends, and I have referenced my baby daddy, fiance. And we now have him on the line to talk about Friends. This is not a debate, just so folks know. Vanessa and I aren't saying that like Friends is garbage or something.
No, absolutely not.
Right. Our point is just like, my point was just like, it's unconscious bias. I think that, of course, he thinks Friends is funny. He grew up watching it and, whatever. And Vanessa's point, you said, right, like Friends had like major studio backing.
Major studio backing, more money. Yeah, but my whole point is that Friends was a mainstream pop culture phenomenon, whereas Living Single was successful in its own right, but with a certain demographic.
But see, I wonder if it had gotten the same amount of money and funding and attention as Friends had. Could it have been? I mean, look at Blackish. Blackish is another thing.
Not then. Not at the time. I mean,
this is the producer.
First of all, y'all are greedy because you had so many black shows in the 90s and there was only one Asian show and one Mexican show. The thing that should be a topic is how Fox and UPN and what was the other one? WB used their black audience to build, their networks and then dumped them later. Because studios stole ideas from each other constantly. I mean, in movies especially, because, there's always that thing where they come out with two exact same movie in the same year. Like, was it the two asteroid ones?
It was like Armageddon and...
Yeah, and then there was the one with Elijah Wood. And that kind of thing happens all the time. The two volcano movies, as soon as ER blew up, everybody tried to copy ER.
You know what though? Stop what you're doing here, because let's just keep it 100. White people steal shit from black people.
They also steal shit from white people.
The difference is that there's two asteroid films, there's two volcanoes, there's a million medical dramas. But when it's like black shit that gets stolen, our shit gets buried.
Yeah.
So it's different. So you can't sit here and act like, oh, we just stole this idea. No.
Living Single didn't just go off the air the moment Friends showed up. It still had its following for what? How long was it on the air? 6 years? I mean, people know what that show is. I mean, you poll white people, 85% of the white people in this country who are over the age of whatever know that show.
Vanessa, please respond. Please respond.
Okay. I'm just going off my personal experience. Like, when I went to college, I mean, it was a predominantly white school. Most people had not heard of Living Single. Unless you were black or some white folks were like, oh, I'm aware of it. But most people didn't know about Living Single. And that's just what Chanel is saying, though, is that, and what I'm also saying, too, is that there's a tendency for shows that are predominantly black. The only exception would be the Cosby Show. But from like the 80s and 90s time period where black shows would just get buried. And
I mean, but you still had black television though. You still had like the Jeffersons and other shows that existed, or as like I said, you know, Latin folks and Asian folks didn't have anything. Period. Zero. Nada.
Okay. Since you brought up the Jeffersons, yeah, the Jeffersons is a popular show. I don't think it's as popular as All in the Family. I believe people can quote more All in the Family than they can the Jeffersons.
Yeah, but it existed.
I think people can quote more from Maude than they can of the Jeffersons.
I don't even know what Maude is.
That's before Robert's time period. But no, this is my point. Is that he talks about my time period, girl, but he knows All in the Family though.
But it's constantly cited as being like this turning point in television, though.
What?
All in the Family.
Right. But, you know, and I'm just going to chime in. First of all, black people, we are not greedy. First of all. So let's just check that as like, you know, because even though you're right, there weren't a ton of like Asian American or like. There was one. It was the comedian Margaret Cho had one, and then there was not another Asian show for 25 years. And then also back then it was just the Mexican American comedian George Lopez. Okay, so what you're not going to do is pit us against other races because saying, you know what I'm saying? Here's my point.
Take a step back.
Here's my point is that we as people of color shouldn't be sitting over here fighting for scraps at the table. Part of the reason why there weren't a bunch of shows is because there was hella white shows. So let's keep it 100.
I'm not arguing that.
I'm not arguing that. Wasn't done yet. That's what I was going to say. There's hella white shows, so the little black shows that did get through were cool. The little that did. And those were the ones that built, like we said, WB, Fox, etc. The other thing I was going to point out and just wanted to say really quickly was that when we were kids, so back in the day when we would talk about TV shows, you never once mentioned to me as a kid living single. You talked about Friends all the time because you were obsessed with like Rachel or Phoebe, whoever the hell it was. I can't remember. But you never talked about living single. You never talked about any black shows other than the Cosby Show. And you've said, like, you know, you talked about your mom. Your mom watched Living Single. Your mom watched Martin.
From time to time, yeah.
You didn't grow up watching that.
You don't know what I watched as a kid.
What did you watch, Robert? Did you watch Living Single?
I would watch Martin, and I would watch Living Single, and I would watch In Living Color.
How did you watch them at the same time when they were on Friends?
And also if there was nothing else on, to be honest. How did you watch
it at the same time when it was with Friends, when Friends came on, and they were back to back?
It was in syndication. I watched it later, too.
We watched it like in live TV. We didn't watch it in syndication.
Well, let me just interject. I think this also does reflect how culture back then was different. You know, I always say, you know, back in like the 80s and 90s, television movies were very segregated. I mean, you had the white shows, you had the black shows. It was segregated. I mean, there's no way you can argue that it was segregated. Moving forward to this time period, like you brought up Blackish, there is like a push, a demand for diversity. It's like people are saying we want to see people who are mixed, people who are black, people who are Asian, people who are Hispanic. We want to see them on TV because that is what America is now.
But it was America then too.
No, it wasn't, Robert.
No. You telling me that there's no Mexicans in?
No, that is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying though is that America was diverse, but there was not a push for diversity. There was not a push for representation. That is why you have Black Nights on Fox, WB, and UPN. You had Black Nights. There was not a push for representation.
Okay, from maybe not from y'all because y'all had black TV shows. I remember the Mexican side of my family being like, well, how come there's so many black TV shows? There ain't no Mexican shows. but they didn't want to watch white shows, just like y'all didn't want to watch white shows. So they watched a lot of black entertainment and black movies and black TV shows just to protest the white shit, even though it wasn't exactly their culture either. Other than like, I don't know, Selena and La Bamba, like number 3 up there on that movie shelf would have been like Friday, for a lot of Mexican American households. And because they didn't have anything. And then the Asian folks definitely didn't have anything.
But I mean, my point is that the fallacy in your argument is that to come for like black people and say like, oh, well, like you guys are greedy is stupid.
No, I was joking when I said the greedy part. I'm just saying like, it's just... you guys like jumped on Friends so hard, and I was just like, I just kind of like was like, well, what about all the other stuff? Like at least you guys had Living Single, and you can look at the list. It's like it's close to 20 black cast TV shows in the 90s. When you compare that to 0 or 1 for Asian and Mexican, It is a big difference.
And then talk to like all of those like white gatekeepers who weren't letting shit through. Like, this is my point, is that I'm like, I don't feel like it should be a scarcity model of like, oh, I'm black and we had 20 black shows, so we should shut the fuck up. It's like, first of all, I think if there was like a TV show about like, whether it's like Mexican American, whether it's like whatever it was, I would support it. I watched George Lopez's show that he had, because I was like, we need to see more people of color. So like, while people of color may go at it between each other, I feel like I'm united. Like, if we're trying to both like come up, I'm gonna come up together with you and I'm gonna advocate for you. This is not just about like, oh, we don't have enough black TV shows. It's more about the fact that like, Friends basically took this idea that Living Single had, got a bunch of studio backing, became huge and successful, and everybody's like, oh yeah, there's Living Single. That's what this is about. This is not about.
I just think there's so many TV shows that rip each other off that it's kind of, if we weren't talking about the fact that one was white and one was black, no one would care.
Okay, I think, this is the issue. This is the issue. It's the disparity of it all. So like I said, Friends comes in, mainstream success, pop culture. Everybody can quote whatever saying that they say. Even though I did not watch Friends when it was on TV, I was aware of it. But you look at shows like Living Single, if you want Margaret Cho's show, All American Girl, using that as an example, they never got that mainstream success. People probably don't even remember Margaret Cho's show, because I think it got canceled like after the first season, if it didn't even made it to the first season.
I think it was before the first season.
It never got that, wow, look at Margaret Cho, an Asian American woman having her own show. It never got that mainstream success. Living Single never got mainstream recognition. It never got like recognized at the Emmys. It got recognized with the NAACP. And that's what I'm saying, is that Living Single was successful in its own demographic. But Friends, which you could say is somewhat of a gentrified ripoff of Living Single, gets this pop culture phenomenon mainstream success. And that's what Chanel and I are talking about, is just the disparity of it all.
But I would argue quality, because I don't think Living Single is that great of a show. But I think that there is, I see what you're saying. I mean, I could say like, I think it is a travesty that like Felicia Rashad didn't never get an Emmy. Excuse me, it's late, an Emmy. But I wouldn't say that like Queen Latifah deserved an Emmy for this performance, not from what I've seen. So I mean, like I don't know. Maybe it just didn't get an Emmy because it wasn't that great of a show.
And that's your opinion. Like, I didn't find Friends to be that funny. If anything, I
liked Friends culturally, but I didn't think it deserved any kind of award.
But this is my point. Like, I'm just going to chime in really quick and say that I think this is the issue. And so girl, that Robert and I go at it. We don't even watch award shows, because every award show that we watch, we end up fighting about, because I'm like, this to me is straight up like unconscious bias, where at the end of the day, we're talking about, like, Robert's like, I don't think it deserved an Emmy. And I'm like, I can see why you think that. I can see, because what you grew up on and what you saw, it makes sense that you wouldn't think that this was funny. But it doesn't mean that that's the case. Like, that's the problem that I have with award shows, is like, what's happening is like people like, it's like if you have a bunch of Roberts in a room judging comedy and saying what is and what is not funny, you're going to get shows like, that you like
Atlanta.
Awards.
You're exactly correct. Yes.
Don't try to throw out Donald Glover, because let's keep it 100. I love Donald Glover. Community, wrote for 30 Rock. Both of those are your favorite shows.
Excuse me. Who watched 30 Rock on Netflix all the time when we first started dating?
What? So I can't watch?
No, I'm just saying, don't come at me saying, "Oh, you watch these white shows," when you were watching it right alongside me. Like, you can't use it in your argument.
But I'm saying my point is that I can use it, because that's my point. Is that your comedic reference is like things like 30 Rock, Community, SNL. That's all I'm trying to point out, is that's what you think is funny. You don't think shows like Living Single and Martin are funny.
I have a bias against Martin because I just don't like him as a person. But I mean, it's, like, and Living Color is like amazing. Like, I love that show, and it should be in the pantheon of like amazingly like progressive television. I just don't like every black show. That's all, and Living Single happens to be one of them I don't like.
And that's fine. I mean, that's fine. But I think our discussion is more about how shows that are predominantly people of color shows don't get that, or back in the day, back in like the 80s and 90s, did not get that recognition.
I totally agree with that. Of course, that's
what the discussion is about.
I mean, I would say that that's still relevant today. Like Blackish, if you look at what they've won in terms of Emmys, Blackish hasn't won really anything.
Anthony Anderson is hilarious, but he's not exactly like, like crying any tears that deserve an Oscar. I mean,
oh, you're right, but Veep deserves like 100 million.
She's annoying as hell. I don't like her either.
They deserve 100 million Emmys.
No, she doesn't. She's just like, what's her name? The white lady that wins one every year. I can't stand her.
And I mean Veep more in the fact of outstanding comedy series, for those who are checking me. That's what I wanted to point out.
But can I just say though, Chanel, is that I just feel as if in this day and age that we're in, it's good to be able to turn on the TV and go through the channels and see shows that have diversity in it. Because, we can remember, exactly like I said, we remember the Black nights on those networks. We remember where if we watch like Friends or Step by Step, we might see like one person of color and be like, "Ooh, look, there's a black person, or there's a Hispanic person on the TV." I mean, when George Lopez's show debuted, it was like amazing to see a Hispanic American family on TV living in the suburbs.
It was, and I'll say my final thought is that I know I came up here hot with the whole with my take on this subject, but I mean, in reality, I totally agree with you guys in terms of the differences of the way that these audiences are being treated and these casts and these writers are being treated. And it is kind of funny because today, a lot of the traditional TV that's being viewed the most, that like is getting the most like night of views, are shows like Empire and Power, and like they're driving social media more than any of these big white shows, which are like they've all been kind of like chopped down into little niches across all these different like streaming services and networks. So in the way, like in this like last dying breath of traditional television, like quote unquote black shows, or shows that are diverse, are the ones that are going out like, on top. So I think that's awesome.
Right.
They're just not getting the recognition in the same way. Like Empire, Power, they're not getting the same. I mean, like Fleabag, like swept the Emmys. in a way that.
But like you said, like you've met many times have said how irrelevant the Emmys or the Grammys are. And I like watching them as a piece of television that comes on once a year, but I'm not sitting there saying that they're the definitive word of what is good or bad. And I don't think anybody is really. But in any case, I'm gonna let you guys wrap it up. It's been going on like an hour and a half now, and we got this little monkey right here who's like needs to go back to sleep. Okay, come on, kid, let's go.
Good night, Felix.
That's why.
Do you want to say good night, Felix?
Good night.
Good night, Felix.
Good night. Well, Vanessa, on that note, I think that's a...
Peace out.
I think that's a good way to end at least that segment about Friends and the Emmys and all of that.
But let me just have my final thought, though. My final thought on it is that I just appreciate that I am alive and that I can see shows that reflect how diverse America, not just America, but how diverse the world is now. Like Billy Porter, he just won an Emmy for his character on Pose. And it's a show that deals with LGBTQ issues that were happening in the late 80s and early 90s. So I'm just like, I am just so thankful to be present in this time period, in this 21st century, in which, like I said, I can go through the channels, I can go on streaming services and see shows that have people who look like me, that have people that have just different views, different cultures, and it's just so good to see that. That's my final thought.
And I think I'll say, for me, my final thought is that, yes, I definitely agree with you. Part of what I think has been really great about kind of being in this stage has been seeing, shows like Fresh Off the Boat, which just got canceled, but, like Crazy Rich Asians. Like, I think, the points that Robert was making about just, not seeing a ton of diversity and it being very white and black in America, and seeing that evolve and change. And then also seeing like dope shows like Atlanta, which, did get like a ton of like Emmys, and like not just like the sidebar Emmys, but the real fucking big Emmys. Like those have all been like great things to see and be a part of. So that has been really exciting. And I would say, because I was kind of making like, I have made the point that like the Emmys are irrelevant and the Grammys are irrelevant. But I think the thing that's true is that it doesn't mean that we don't give a shit. Cause like, let's be real. Like you spend years and years and years being told that like the Grammys is like the top of like the thing, like that shows that you like the best of the best. That doesn't go away over time. So I think, I am excited to see more and more efforts to like basically get more and more of these different types of shows. Cause I think you're right. Seeing like Pose get that Emmy was like super huge. And I remember being like, yeah, this is awesome. And we need to see more and more of this. So yes, I think that is very true. I also think, we spent a lot of time on that Friends controversy piece, but I also think that just in general, Living Single is a fun bomb-ass show. And it's in the same vein as like Girlfriends, Sex and the City, shit, Friends too. Like, I think if you like any of those shows, you're going to love Living Single. And despite what Robert says, I think it's hella funny. And I think that outside of the clothes being dated, I don't even feel like the issues are that dated. So that would be my thought, is that if you like Sex and the City, if you like Friends, if you like, Girlfriends, like Living Single was the precursor for all of that.
Right. And I will say is that, I was still laughing. Like when I watched Living Single for the podcast, I was still laughing. You know, like you said, the issues are still relevant. You know, the comedy is still there. I thought maybe the difference between Living Single and Friends for me is that with Living Single, like I said, you know, Kim Cole, John Hinton, they're comedians, so I'm sure they had a lot of ad-libs. Living Single felt more natural. You know, the way they talked, the way they acted, it felt natural. Like, for me, I sometimes forget that I'm watching a show. I feel like I'm actually watching these 6 individuals, you know, like a reality show. Whereas I feel like with Friends, and maybe this is why I couldn't connect with it, it felt very scripted. Like, I didn't really get a sense of ad-libs. And, I mean, I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong. Maybe they did ad-libs and stuff. But it just felt very scripted. You know, it's like I felt like I was watching a TV show. I didn't really get invested into the characters like I did with Living Single. And not saying, you know, Friends is a bad show or anything like that. This is just my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I think final thoughts, like, I feel like I would say with Living Single, it's something that I grew up with. And it's easy for me to find it funny in the same way that I would find Girlfriends funny. And but yeah, like, you know, I did like Sex and the City, and I thought that show was funny too. I think Friends, I didn't find it that funny for me. And part of me wonders if it's because I didn't grow up with it. Like, you know, because I feel like I caught Sex and the City early enough at a point where I could be like, oh, this is funny. And with Friends, it was like I didn't watch it when it was like a cultural, like when it was, you know, on. And then watching it in syndication, there's been moments when I've been like, oh, okay, I get it. But I don't know if I've been like laugh out loud funny. So part of me just wonders if like I just missed the boat with Friends. But yeah, like I don't, you know, I don't think it was a bad show. And I think that there's a lot of chemistry between that, because they're like friends in real life, and you could see that in their chemistry, and they feel like a hella tight knit group. So I think that there's chemistry there. I think that for whatever reason, the jokes just didn't land on me the same way that they did on other people.
Right.
All right, girl, we gonna call it, because this has been, I think, and I mean, as it should be with television shows, it's longer because we spent a lot of time like watching this shit, and it shaped who we are. So yes, this has been a longer episode. Hopefully y'all hung out with us and stuck through it. And I think, you know, had some good interactions with us. We are always excited to share our thoughts and even our producer's thoughts with you guys. So stay tuned. Next week, we will have another TV show. We will be fun. It'll be conversations. We will have wine. We invite you guys to listen with us with your wine. And you always can listen to us on Apple or on iTunes, on Google Podcasts, on Stitcher. You can find us on Facebook under Holler FM. You can find us on Instagram, and you can always go to our website, holler.fm. So we will see you guys next time. Vanessa, we out.
Mic drop.
Boom.
This was a Holler FM podcast.
And I think we're done.